What's up, and welcome to episode 179 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and I'm joined by Mr. Woody V. What's happening, bro?
Great week, man. I got to watch most of the Blitz, actually. Most games I watched, so it was really fun, man, to have basketball back in my life.
Good to have some hoops back and not long till the season starts, which is nice. So just before we introduce our very special guest, just a reminder to please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, so we're introducing a friend of the podcast this week. This guest is joining us for the fifth time. He's a man that needs no introduction to Aussie basketball fans. And look, he's someone that Woody and I are proud to call him, mate. So it's a big Throwback Hoops welcome to Matt McQuade.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. It's an honour, as always. Always thrilled that you asked me on to have a chat and chop it up, as Woody would say. And, yeah, he talked about basketball being in our lives. Basketball, Rob, hey, man, it hasn't stopped for you and I.
That's right.
Not for you two guys.
This is great. It's just one thing flows into another, which has pretty much been my life for the last 25 plus years of commentating. It's been, and writing and podcasting and doing everything else. So yeah, it's great.
Not a bad life, right? Doing the thing we love the most. So
yep.
Yeah. I think it was nearly a year ago to the day we had you on this time.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe a week later in
September 10th last year.
So yeah, it's amazing how quick the time goes.
Yeah.
So all right, well, I know you said to me, Matty, you'd run out of jerseys, and that's fine. I know you don't have the collection. You got anything to show us today, or you want us to move on? Or I know
it's pretty boring. I mean, all it is it's just a warm-up jacket it's Glenn Saville's old warm-up jacket, actually, from the 07-08 Kings. That he jokes about it to me. He says, I gave you half of my stuff. I burnt the other half from 07-08. Wow. So that famous / infamous team. So look, I'm hopeless with the jerseys. This is the thing. I've been on so many times. You've gone right through the collection, pretty much. So
who was the random Celtics one you wore that time? I remember you had it. Who was it? It was
No, I had the I didn't wear it. I've had the Larry Bird one, obviously, because everybody knows me and Bird. But no, that was the Gershon Yabusele connection, Celtics connection, the Shanghai Sharks jersey, which I didn't wear, which Amanda Gorgian has been telling me to wear, but I figure I probably should frame it because it's
good to see him back in the association as well. I think he should be pretty good for the Knicks this year. So
yeah, absolutely.
Nice. All right, Woods, I can tell this Sydney Kings fest of the episode's going to start. So why don't you show us who you're wearing today?
Sure.
So Woody's standing up, showing the number 0 Sydney Kings Kuol jersey.
And look, the reason I wore the jersey was Kuol was the big free agent signing last year for us, Matt, coming over from Cairns. And, the usage rate was never going to be the same coming over from Cairns to Sydney in a different situation. We saw him appear in 25 games for us last year, averaging 5.8 points a game. I'm not too concerned about the stats, but just what really flew under the radar a bit last year was him going invisible at different times and not seeing him contribute the way we would have liked, right? And I was thinking to myself, what are we going to see out of Kuol this season? I had a lot of thoughts myself, but before we started recording offline, we were actually speaking about him, and you straight away voiced your concerns about Kuol. So why don't I throw over to you straight away and let the viewers and the audience know what your thoughts are on Kuol?
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. I mean, you talked about last year, and he was the big free agent local pickup, as it were, and just didn't get the job done, and for a number of reasons. And one of the things, to be fair to him, was that it was well known that he was pretty much injured for most of the season and didn't train very, very much with the team at all. So they were trying to sort of work through the issue that he had, and it just didn't really work. Didn't fit into the offense, didn't make an impact. Look, the worst part about it is he's a marquee, so he's paid as a marquee player, and from that perspective, you would say the signing didn't work and hasn't worked to this point, and he's got a lot to prove this season. And as we'll get into later on, we know that there's going to be even more pressure on him and the team, considering the hits that this group has taken over the last, pretty much, 2 weeks. But Yeah, look. It's hard for me in the position that I'm in, but I got to be authentic and say I never liked the signing in the first place. I didn't. I've never been as high on him as other people have. It's one of those things. Bill Simmons always talks about it. Good stats, bad team guy. Not that Cairns were a bad team when he was there, but you even mentioned it in terms of the opportunity, the usage rate, and you got to if you're that paid that kind of money, you've got to figure out a way to contribute in maybe other areas. But I always thought he didn't sit with me that he's been signed as a marquee, and what it does, it really limits what you can do, because in terms of who they can get from an import perspective. So they're limited because you've got Cooks and you've got him. You're limited to two.
And Delhi.
Yeah. But particularly him in particular, you're limited to two imports, unless you decide to convert, that marquee into a salary that impacts the cap, which then takes you over into luxury tax territory. And are the Kings prepared to do that? Again, with what's happened, the news today, and then obviously Jason Spurgeon going down, they're going to have to do something. Yeah, unfortunately, I think they're going to have to bite the bullet and spend a lot more money than they were hoping to, in all honesty, because had this worked, you probably wouldn't, you can cover for it, but it just hasn't worked. He's got an enormous amount to prove. And look, I can say this because it's out in the media. There's a rumor that his knee injury that he was working through last year is chronic. And I think we saw at the Blitz when he played, he just really, again, there's no explosion. His movement looks limited to me. He doesn't have the strength. It's problematic, to say the least. Look, I hope to God that I'm wrong, and that he can step up and produce, but I'm really, really concerned. I am.
It's funny, Woods. I knew he had a bit of a down season last year, but when you just said was it 5.8 points per game, I would have not. Yeah. If you would have asked me before, I think, surely he was around 10 at least. But I wouldn't have thought. But that's pretty average.
And Matt makes a good point. You need to find ways to contribute as a role player. How can you do the things that might not necessarily show up on the score sheet, but you're contributing to W's for your team. In theory, you got one of the elite backcourt there of KD and Delhi, right? You got Xavier Cooks coming back from a tumultuous year, and what looks like a much improved Tim Suarez. This guy should be the glue guy in that starting lineup to sit between those guys, in theory. But I mean, you speak about his knee injury and his health concerns. It is a worry. I mean, we're losing Alex Tui this year as well. We'll get into it in a second. But there's some things to worry about here. But
appreciate that, Woods, and the matching Kings hat. Always good when you've got the matching combo there. So, look, I always try and wear some Celtics gear when we get Matt on the show, right? Matt's obviously a diehard Celtics fan. Got a bit of a random one here. I think I've worn maybe a Dominique Celtics, maybe a Paul Pierce. This is a random one. Those that know me will know I'm a massive fan of this guy. So that's a clue, Woods. You might sort of know when you see this number.
I know who it is already. All right. So my dear friend Robert Clayton is wearing the Celtics 50 Eddie House jersey.
God bless him. My man Eddie House, who, by the way, is doing a great job on Celtics radio or Celtics TV, actually. MSNBC last year. I don't know. They don't have the contract this year, I think. But, he's been terrific. And, oh, wow. I mean, what a contributor on the 07-08 championship team.
Huge, wasn't he? I mean, this is a guy, Woody, as you know, this one here is a white Adidas Eddie House jersey, so nice random one. I love these ones. But this is a guy I was following in his time, Arizona State. He was putting up some huge, games in college. I think it was his surname that maybe I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. Just kind of always followed him in the NBA. But look, he ended up playing for 9 teams in the NBA. I think I've got 5 different team jerseys. So this is one of the 5 different 9 teams that he's got. So I'd love to get all of them one day. Probably a little bit hard to get some of the more random ones. But yeah, as Matt rightfully said there, he had some real good moments on that 07-08 championship team. He was with the Celtics for 3 seasons, I believe. And look, he really helped them win that championship. He averaged close to 10 points a game. So that's pretty solid there, right? So he's also known as the brother-in-law of former NBA player Mike Bibby. He's 2 weeks older than me. I looked up, thought that was pretty cool there. But Eddie House, someone that probably gets forgotten a little bit about, even though he's still in the media. I know his sons were coming through the college ranks. I'm not sure if they did make it there. I think maybe I don't think they've, progress further than that. But it's good to see you had some sort of sons there. But maybe I'll go to you for this one, Woods. What were your memories of Eddie House back in the day? Irrational confidence, right?
Irrational confidence guy. And firstly, if I recall correctly, when we had Liam on the show, the next star czar, as Matt likes to call him, you were an Eddie House Charlotte Bobcats jersey, didn't
good
you?
memory.
Wow.
That was a long time ago, 2 years,
Yeah.
3 years ago now. So
Yeah.
I know you've been a fan, and I expect nothing less from you owning multiple Eddie House jerseys, man. So
Got a
good one.
signed Miami Heat one somewhere as well. It's a pretty cool one. But well, I'll go to card of the week, and look, this is obviously not like a big name Celtics, but the card of the week, we're going top of the crop here. One of the absolute all-time legends of the Celtics. I think Matt's going to really enjoy this one. So this is a guy that was named to the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary team. This is probably one of my favorite auto cards. I've got to say, I was looking at it today. I'm really lucky to have got this one because it's quite a rare card. But it is none other than a Panini Spectra autograph card of the great Dave Cowens.
Oh, wow.
So look how nice that card is there. Really nice looking card there. Just a little bit of a bio for those that maybe, the younger generation that are watching this. Two-time champion, one-time MVP, 8-time All-Star. He was also an All-Star Game MVP. He made 4 all-defensive teams. He was Rookie of the Year when he played. And, as I said, named to the 50th and 75th anniversary of the NBA. So a bit of Dave Cowens. Some quick thoughts on Mr. Cowens there, man?
One of the all-time greats, played center at 6'8". Battled Kareem Abdul-Jabbar memorably in the championship series. One of them against Milwaukee was in that won the championship 74-76. Just before I got, he was just before I got started, because I've told the story a million times about how I got started in 79 and even before, but it was Larry Bird, that 79-80 rookie season. So he played with Dave 1 year. Funny story about Cowens. He was an original, and he retired briefly and was driving a cab around Boston of all things.
Right. Yeah.
So he was a really interesting character, but pure hustle, pure heart. On those great 74 and 76 teams, Tommy Heinsohn was the coach, and it was John Havlicek in his last years, and guys like JoJo White, and obviously some of the all-time. Paul Silas was another one. Yeah, some of the great Celtics of all time. So, but he was incredible. He was just a guy that played way above his size, and incredible athlete up and down the court. Tremendous rebounder, defender. But it was really his heart, his tenacity, and his competitiveness that really set him apart.
A little bit of a forgotten about MVP as well. I think if you're naming sort of MVPs from the 70s and 80s, I don't think Dave Cowens is going to be the first name that comes to people's mind there. But it just shows you how great he was. And you mentioned that story about him driving cabs there. What was the Celtics doco that was just out Woods, the one you got me onto?
Celtic City.
Celtic City. So for those that haven't seen
brilliant.
It was really well put together, wasn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it really was.
He's portrayed really well in that documentary.
Yeah.
A great passer for a big man as well. I think.
Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah.
He could average 4 or 5 assists from the center position.
So from Eddie House to Dave Cowens, but just one last look at that. So how good's that? A nice sign, really crisp autograph. I've noticed the older the player, the better the autograph they've got. So I got a Jonathan Kuminga one the other day, and he just signed it JK. It's like, come on, mate, put some effort into it. Actually sign your name. But so Dave Cowens. So we'll get those up on socials next week, and let us know what you think of those. But
so you both finished Celtic City?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sick. Awesome.
Yeah, no, it was good. All right, well, we're going to do a couple of previews today. A couple of teams that are close to our heart there in the mighty Perth Wildcats and the Sydney Kings. But before we do that, I thought we might just go into some quick hits just to cover a little bit of news that's happened in the last week there. So, look, the NBL Blitz finished over the weekend. I thought it was a pretty successful event that was held in Canberra this year. So I wanted to maybe ask you both if there was a team or a player or something that stood out in particular for you in the Blitz. So maybe we'll start with our special guest, Matt. What were your thoughts and anything that stood out for you in that Blitz?
Yeah, first of all, highly successful. One of the most successful preseason tournaments ever, if not the most successful. I'll say that, even though unusually it was very much earlier than what they typically are. And I mean, you're talking to someone, I would wager that I've called more preseason tournament games for the NBL than anyone ever has. I mean, God, when I did the one in Brisbane, I called 15 of them in that 4-day span. Crazy. But and that was great. But this one, I think, especially given the fact that Canberra's being touted as the next potential NBL franchise city, and they came out. They really did. So full credit to them, full credit to the NBL for the way it was promoted. From a team perspective, look, there were so many key pieces from each team it seemed missing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get a real handle. I mean, congratulations to New Zealand. They did a great job to win the thing. So what I tend to look at is more of an individual standpoint, and the imports in particular, who I think is going to make an impact. You could obviously go to the Ray Borner medalist, Isaiah Brockington from the Breakers. He was terrific. The guy I really was impressed with was Tyson Walker of Melbourne United. I thought he really stepped into that Dellavedova role and made it his own. Completely different type of player, obviously, because he's going to be a scorer. He's going to be able to get to the rim. He's going to, he's maybe not as good a distributor as what Matty is, but I loved it. I loved the way he played. I loved his attitude. He's aggressive, but plays with some composure as well. So he was a real standout for me from an import perspective.
I think you're right as well. It's really checking out these imports, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look, as you said, there was a lot of key people. I remember the first Adelaide game. I'm like, oh, sweet, I'll sit down and watch this. I'm like, hang on, no one's playing. It's no problem. There's no Trez. But a few people were sort of, precautionary sort of rested there. But what about yourself? Was any player or team that stood out for you there?
Well, firstly, before
you watched every minute of the game, every game, right?
Most of them. I think I might have missed one game, but about Walker, we saw that we heard that interview that he gave with Peter Hooley, and I went to Robbie and I go, oh man, he didn't give us much in that interview, did he? This was very, very. I'm like, hopefully he's more expressive on the court. And then I texted Robbie's like, man, this guy, he's going to be something special. And Melbourne have done well with their import trio as well, right? So I think that's great. But what stood out for me is we said that last week on the show that for a franchise to start 3 imports at the 1, 2, and the 3 is rare, right? And with Tiger Campbell, David Johnson, and Bryce Hamilton, the Jack Jumpers have done that. And you put them alongside top-level Australians like Bannon and Magnay at the 4 and 5. I know it's tough losing Sean McDonald, but look, they've recruited really well. These guys are going to be fun to watch, and I think Tasmania are going to be very competitive.
Yeah. I'll echo that, Woods. That was exactly what I was going to say. We didn't compare notes. Really impressed with those guys. Johnson had a good game. Hamilton had a good game. I think the Tasmanian Tiger was pretty consistent, right? He's really going to feed, the team. I like what they've done. I know we weren't as high on them last year. They had their small forwards last year were something you would have seen from 5 seasons before sort of thing. But I like that 1 to 3 import combo. It's not something we see often there, but I think they're going to be exciting. And each one of those guys probably on their night could put up, 25 to 30 points. So yeah, that was the big one for me, and nice that they sort of all were playing there. And you're right, put those 3 with some good Aussie big man talent as well, and you're just going to hope that both those guys stay healthy. But no, that was it. So no, I enjoyed seeing them as well. And so the season starts not next week, the week after, isn't it? So I know we're not far away. I know you're still annoyed that Supercoach isn't up, Woods.
Can I give you one more? Jacory McLaughlin.
Right? Yeah, you like him.
I like him, man. I mean, we didn't see much. We saw that one game. What's the inside scoop there, Matt? Is he going to be sticking around?
I think he will. Yeah, I look. That's the talk. Whether or not he does, and it'll be interesting because JT came out and said, "Will Davo Hickey's my starting point guard?" So, if McLaughlin, he's going to sort of replace Davo in that role. Davo's going to play alongside Tyler Harvey essentially. And it'll be a nice piece coming off the bench, and he's probably suited for it as well. He's not, look, people expecting him to be Trey Kelly. He's not going to be Trey Kelly. He's a completely different type of player. But I like the size. I like his competitiveness. I like the fact he seems to fit well with that group. He's being coached by JT, so he understands that part of it. And Tatum's an amazing coach, so he'll fit in beautifully if it does come to pass. And I think it'd be surprising if it didn't, because as we said, 2 weeks before the season starts, I don't think they want to be looking around for anybody else to bring in now. I think you brought your big NBA center into, which what a signing that is, and especially with Froling not being there, and then Lachlan Albury going to the NBA, so they needed to do that. So I think they've done very well.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, great to see McGee arrive in the country as well. I mean, he's going to be someone that if the Illawarra's coming to play your team in your local town, you're going to go and watch it just to see how that that guy knows what a resume he's got there. So, all right, so that's the Blitz. I thought we better just quickly touch on the NBL1 Nationals. So that was on at the same time as the Blitz in Canberra. I thought that was pretty good the way they did that there. In the women's, Knox, so from NBL1 South, they beat Coburn 93-72 in the final. So for Coburn, that was their first loss of the entire season. So an amazing season for them. Just fell short at the last hurdle there. So Paige Bradley winning finals MVP. Wanted to just maybe touch more on the men's side of things though, Matt. So representing our NBL1 East that we both love so much. The Canberra Gunners, really good. I know we're probably both cheering them on. They're a likeable team. We've got some nice guys on that team, yeah. And look, they put Geraldton to the sword in that game, Geraldton from NBL1 West. So Canberra winning 86-67 there. So Will Mayfield was just amazing throughout the tournament. Tui was good in that game. And, of course, Glenn Morrison, as always, was good. But, yeah, what were your thoughts on Canberra sort of, putting the NBL1 East on the map there?
Yeah, just so proud of them. I mean, it's look, they're not your team or my team in NBL1 East, but I have amazing respect for them. Obviously I was lucky enough to call the grand final in NBL1 East, and that was them. And what was it? Just an epic battle against Illawarra. It was phenomenal. So, I was proud to be able to do that. And look, just a great bunch of people. And I'm close with their head coach, Pete Harak, the NBL1 East Coach of the Year. He's been amazing. I mean, you look at what this team has done. When they were the first NBL1 East champions back in 2022, I call that game too, ironically. And then they've reached the grand final again, missed out last year, lost to Maitland, but then come back and do what they did in an NBL1 East. And I think it just says a lot. Look, Robbie, you and I were talking about it, or you and Woody as well, is the talent. It went to another level. I mean, this is amazing that it's taken 4 years for the East to actually win the national championship. I thought it would take longer because the South obviously super powerful. The West has improved. The North is huge, and they pay a lot more than what the East teams do. But it took an amazing team. Look, they don't have flashy imports. They don't have that guy that's a highlight reel above the rim type of player. But what they do have, they have the best low post player, I think, in the country, quite frankly, Glenn Morrison. It's not just the league. You see what he did. You talk about the final. I mean, what they did to Southern Districts in that semi-final. He was like 10 for 10 or something at one stage. He's just unstoppable.
Matt McQuade, should his phone be ringing? Is my question.
We can get onto that. I think it's interesting.
They've got some good young big talent as well.
They do. I mean, the young guys that they really showed up. Big Wither and Angus Byatt, who I'm high on. You talk about they've got two of the best small forwards in the game. Even though they kind of play the 3-4 combo. In Cameron Pender and the MVP William Mayfield of the.
I don't think Cam Pender misses gym day just quietly, does he?
Oh, he's a beast, isn't he?
Big boy, isn't he? Yeah,
Both of them are.
Yeah,
both of them are.
Yeah,
and then you got James Tui, who's a great stalwart, and Derek Emelafonwu, who was the MVP of the NBL1 East Grand Final Series. But they all, what I love about them is just, and I said this on the call, it was the togetherness, the chemistry, the connection. They all play a part. They're all involved. I mean, Brooklyn Bruton, there's another one that kid's going to be a star.
He didn't even get on in that NBL1 East final. He had some big moments in the national.
And he's huge. He was huge. So, and Pete, that's what happens. I mean, you just got a great coach. They all believe in him. They all play hard for each other. The chemistry is remarkable, and they fully deserve that. You can say what you like if imports or players, NBL players weren't there or whatever. Most of them were. But it was so well deserved, and I'm just incredibly proud of them. And for you and I, and we, the East means a lot to us, and to see those guys take that next step and win the national championship, man, that's one I won't soon forget.
No, that was huge, and they're going to come in with a lot of confidence in the NBL1 East next year after that.
Yeah,
they seem to bring back the same team nearly every season, don't they? So they will bring it back, and they'll be very hard to beat. So, all right, we'll finish off with the quick hits. Thought we'd better put an NBA question in there for you, Matt. So, Boston Celtics. Look, obviously, it's not the excitement that people have normally had around them, and I think the main reason is that Jason Tatum's probably likely to miss the entire season. In fact, he is going to miss the entire season with that injury, right? So just wanted to ask you, I guess, what your thoughts were on Boston. And the second question to that is, Woody and I have discussed this before. who the hell is playing in the center for this team? They don't seem to have any big men. Like, is it, I don't know.
Neemias
Who the starting center's gonna be.
Neemias Queta. Xavier Tillman is still there.
Yeah,
Right?
man,
Neemias
that's a
Queta.
big drop. But what are your thoughts? How do you think they'll go this year? Do you think it might be a bit of a transition year for them?
Yeah, of course it will be. They're not a championship contender. That's obvious. It's the moves they made to get under the floor. Once everything changed, once Jason did his Achilles. I mean, that was it. They were set up. But even that year, the whole thing with Porzingis, that weird illness that just never went away, and he just wasn't himself. He wasn't the guy from the previous season. It just never felt like even if they had Jason healthy, that they were going to win the championship that year. Especially in the playoffs, it just didn't look good to me. So once that happened, then everything changed, and they obviously have it's like a soft reset, I call it. It's not a hard reset. It's not a hard rebuild. I'd like to see them. They're not going to tank because there's too many guys that are too proud and too good. You guys have been talking about, obviously I listen all the time, and you're talking about Derek White and whether he can be an all-star this year. And I think the answer is yes. I think he could be. But it will be out of necessity rather than anything else. Look, let's face it. He's been close, for the last couple of years anyway. So if they're gonna do anything, and the best they can do for me is a playing spot.
Hey, Matt, do you think they could bring back Al Horford? He's still unsigned.
He's gone.
Where's he gone, though?
He's signing for 2 years with Golden State.
They've been signing for the last 6 weeks.
No, it hasn't been official, but it's kind of a done deal. And the reason they haven't signed him yet is the whole Jonathan Kuminga situation, I think. So there's a salary cap implication that they've got to work through with that. So that's why he's not officially signed, but he's gone. Yeah,
hey, what about Russell Westbrook in a Celtics jersey? Make that happen. That could be interesting.
Thank you.
You don't want that.
So I think Sam Hauser, Anthony Simons, Jaylen Brown.
There's talent.
Luka Garza.
Derek White will start at point guard, and then Queta. He'll be starting
off the bench. There was talk about Peyton playing the one spot and Derek playing the two.
Oh, that's possible too. Chris Boucher.
I like that signing.
We said he could start, couldn't he?
Yeah. Look, at best, they're a playing team. Look, and it's no disrespect. I mean, Jaylen Brown is a finals MVP, and whether there's people that like him, there's people that don't like him. He's my guy, and I've said that many, many times. I think he'll be great, but part of me is it's one of those situations. It's a very deep draft this year. You might not have a Cooper Flag, but what you do have is from 1 to about 10, some guys that can potentially change life. So part of me kind of thinks, would it be better if we kind of just, I'm not going to use the T word, but not make the play-in and get into the lottery, and then you get Jason back and you make a couple of moves. You've got yourself under the second apron, nearly under the first apron now. So, and maybe you're able to make some moves. Maybe you package up. They've got some draft picks, so maybe you package that up in hopes of getting another superstar potentially. Give
us a wins total, Matt. If you had to pick a wins total this year? Do they go under 500, late 30s, early 40s? What do you reckon?
I think 40, if I'm being honest. I think 40 and 42 is about the look. They could get to 45, but I just don't see, the front court is just decimated, and it's who's going to play in the front court for them? No position. No Al.
Win total wins. What do you reckon?
I think that's about right. Just under 500.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see, won't it? They're clearly too proud a team to tank, and they still have some decent players. And you never know. I mean, there's a lot of teams being talked up in the East. I'm sort of not loving all this hype that the Hawks are getting, but it seems a little bit open. New York, we're still not quite sure where their place this year. Detroit, are they going to be better than last year? So you never know, right? They could, put together a decent, regular season record, and we'll see how we go there. But no, I can't wait for the NBA to start. I think we're about 6 weeks away from that. So we get NBL, then we got NBA, and then life's basically complete again.
And we got the Pelicans coming down under too.
Yeah,
so
are you going to that or?
No, unfortunately, I wish.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a couple of season previews to do, fellas. So looking forward to this one. I think this is a few years in a row. We cover both of our teams here. So we're going to start off with the mighty Wildcats, the NBL's best ever team. So I guess I'll read out that roster there, Wood. So
go for it.
Head coach, of course, is John Riley. I'll more read the incoming players. So you've got Cameron Hoofner, who was in the NBL1 Central last season. So I love that surname there. Jaron Riley, son of John, who actually looked pretty good in the Blitz. We've got JLA, the big marquee signing there, back to the NBL. Lat Mayen, and I've written this one down because I know it's a hard one to say. We've got Noah Kwakuherg, the next star from France, who actually looks a little bit like Almanza if you look at him quite quickly there. And then we've got Sunday Detch. So a bit of movement in that team there. Obviously, there's one name missing there that's probably would have preferred to see that name there in the amazing Bryce Cotton. And look, a potential depth chart, I guess, with the starting five. So, look, I mean, the point guard's the one, it probably should just be blank that spot there, Woods, because we know they're still recruiting a point guard there. Ben Henschel returning to play shooting guard. Dylan Windler at the 3. I'm really high on him. I think he's going to have a great season. Christian Doolittle and JLA. So I've got to say, Windler, Doolittle and JLA, that's got to be close to the best front line in the NBL. I would have thought that is an amazing front line there. And look, there's some decent bench players there. David Okwero, Lat Mayen. They've got a lot of the South Sudanese guys, which is great to see. Russo Nance, the Kiwi. And even guys like Cam Hoofner, who's a DP player, but I think he could get some minutes there depending on how they go. Don't know a lot about the next star player. We'll see how he goes there. But
tell me, Cam Hoofner, he was at Forestville under Andrew Simons, right? Yeah.
Yep. So they won, or they made the finals anyway. They made the grand final. He's played with Lat Mayen as well, so they've got that pre-existing relationship. And he comes across from Sam Houston State University. He threw down a massive dunk in the NBL1 Central Final. Massive dunk. If you haven't seen that, look it up. Yeah, but look, obviously, lads, the big one there is the third import spot. There was talk today that they maybe offered a contract to Patrick Beverley, and they thought about offering a contract and they didn't. Thank God for that, is what I'll say. Look, a little bit disappointed as a Wildcats lifelong fan for me that we're less than 2 weeks from the season starting. We still don't have a point guard. I don't know what the weight's been, given that they were so quick to make Bryce make a decision there, and they still haven't replaced him there. I'm not sure. They're certainly taking it to the last hour to sign someone, but. And it's clear it's going to be a point guard, I guess, right? But maybe I'll start off with yourself, Woods. Give us some thoughts on what you think of this roster. Look, for me, they finished third last year with an 18-11 record. I think they should be pretty similar place. But what are your thoughts on them?
Look, they've done a good job bringing back those guys, Windler and Doolittle, right? I mean, Windler looks like he's going to be a different player to last year with extra responsibility. Doolittle's very comfortable with the environment here in Perth. I think he'll thrive as well. We saw in the playoffs last year the kind of level of impact he can have when given extra responsibility. And JLA obviously coming in is going to be great. But I think the glaring thing, as you said, not having that point guard now early in the season where all the other teams have tooled up, got their guys together. It is a bit of a concern, right?
Hey, Woods, tell me, you've always been a big JLA fan there. What should Wildcats be excited to see from him this year?
I mean, Pinder's gone, right? They needed to bring someone in. JLA will bring something slightly different. He'll stretch the floor. He's a local guy. He's got roots there in Perth. So I think it is really nice for him to come and play there. So yeah.
Maybe not expecting that sort of MVP caliber season. Do you think he's still at that level there, or do you think maybe he's a little bit down from where he's been, or should we expect a lot from him?
It's hard to say. I mean, he's been out of the league for a year, right? So it comes back a little bit older, a little bit wiser after some time playing overseas. So yeah, I'll be interested to see. We didn't see him in preseason, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we go to Matt for his thoughts, maybe you might as well continue at Woods. Give me some, maybe give me a bit of a ladder prediction, and for fantasy, give me like a bit of a start and a sleeper for those that are playing NBL Supercoach this year.
Look, I'm going to say top 6 finish. I can say right now. Please. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to look at all the teams and then break it down, but I'd say top 4 to 6, somewhere around there. I mean, Doolittle, you got to go for a fantasy stud. He's going to do a little bit of everything, get you some of those blocks and steal numbers as well. And then, I don't know, it's a bit hard. Lat Mayen, he's going to have to play, right? Put him there as the sleeper, right? You'd probably get him cheap, and you could put him at the 3 or the 4 in your fantasy team, so you could build some combinations around him, right?
Just quickly on Lat Mayen and Sunday Detch coming over there, Woods, I'll stick with you for this one. How do you see those guys fitting in? Obviously, both coming from Adelaide last year. I think they could add a little bit to this team, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially Sunday Detch. He comes back for his second stint as the Perth Wildcats, much more wiser with a lot more experience, and they're looking at him as a future leader for this team in the coming years. So, what he's going to provide off the court is going to be as imperative of what he provides on it. Right.
Hey Woods, is that the old logo you've got there as well? So I'm missing that one.
Yeah, I forgot to
I
update the
like
logo,
it.
but that's
Leave it
probably a
there.
good thing.
Leave
It's
it
a good
there.
thing, right?
It looks a lot better than some AI design thing that's been copied by 100 college teams. But,
yeah.
Matt, we'll go to you. We know you've got a lot of respect for the Wildcats. You've been very sort of vocal of that over the years, which I love you for that. What are your thoughts on this roster, the way it's constructed so far? Obviously, there's still the big question mark, but yeah, what are your thoughts on them?
I am very, very impressed with this roster. I think I'm probably higher on them than maybe a few of the Red Army are, simply because obviously, you know, the one of the greatest of all time has left, and it leaves a massive hole. And it is a concern. I agree with you guys about the fact they haven't signed an import point guard yet. I don't know what the delay is. That if they get it right, though, this team is a no doubt championship contender. I actually think I don't have them in the 4-6. I've got them in a 1-3.
Yeah, I thought 4-6
I
is a bit low from our previous.
I think they're easily going to be one of the top 3 teams in the league. And you mentioned before, Robbie, in terms of, you could make an argument that the starting front court's the best. No, there's no argument. That is the best front court in the league.
It's pretty good.
Hands down. I mean, Windler is, look, he's much better in the second half of the season. I'm expecting a lot of him. And as you said, there's going to be more responsibility, and, you know, he's going to get a lot more volume as well. And look, you guys have seen him in the NBA. You know what he's capable of, right?
Yeah.
Doolittle, to me, is the best two-way player in the league. And I think Doolittle's an absolute superstar. And the thing I love about Doolittle is the way he goes about it. I love these guys that are no muss, no fuss. They just play their role. They play hard at both ends of the floor. They can do everything. And, I mean, Doolittle was incredible in the playoffs.
Just don't grab him for an interview after the game.
No,
you're not going to get a whole lot from him, right? Yeah.
You won't get anything from him. And then, obviously, JLA, because we haven't seen him. But when we did see him, look, he's a game changer at both ends of the floor. He can, for a 7-footer to be able to stretch the floor the way he does offensively, that's one thing. Runs the floor great, but obviously it's what he does in rim protection automatically. You know, look, Keanu Pinter could rim protect, not like this guy, not even close. You know, I mean, this guy is he's special, and he's an intimidating factor.
How teams going to score on this front court, right? I mean, Dylan Windler's got the longest arms, you know. Doolittle's can guard sort of probably 3 or 4 positions, and you've got JLA there. So, I'm very high on that front line. As you said, Matt, you're right. It is the best front line in the league.
It is on paper, without a doubt. Now, it has to perform, obviously, the chemistry and the connectivity, and all of that stuff. But I just think on paper, it was such a great move to get Windler and Doolittle especially back. I'm just so high on him.
What sort of point guard would you like to see Perth get? What sort of type of player?
They need someone, obviously, who can score, but not to the extent where they're going to expect Bryce Cotton to go out and average 35 a game for them. They don't need that. No. They need a distributor. They've got plenty of firepower. They've got weapons. They've got guys who can stick the 3. They've got guys who can score. They've got guys who can create on their own. So I want someone who can play D. I mean, look, God bless Bryce, but that wasn't his forte. He wasn't a great defender. You know, he just wasn't. He just wasn't. It's not what he was there for. Offensively, he's maybe the greatest, not maybe, he's the greatest offensive guard of all time. But in terms of defense, get his steals, he get his deflections here or there. But he's not going to stop anybody one-on-one. It's just not what he was there for. So I would like to see more of a defensive-oriented point guard, a distributor, and obviously it's going to be someone who can score the basketball as well, but won't have that pressure to go and get 30 a game. Look, I think if you look at the depth chart, you know, that maybe backup point is a bit of a concern potentially. But I think Elijah Pepper, what he showed in NBL1 West, and I know it doesn't necessarily translate, but, you know, he's a walking bucket, that one.
Plus Henschel and Sunday Detch could play a little bit of backup point.
Henschel in particular, I think will. Yeah, you're right. And that's – but one of the big things I really love about this roster, and you guys talked about the 2 of them, Lat Main and Sunday Detch, and what they addressed, this is fundamentally, I think, you got to give credit, as much as he gets criticised, you got to give credit to Danny Mills and obviously JR for going and getting guys who address the primary need of this ball club, and that is fundamentally stopping people. They haven't been able to do it ever since Scott Morrison came in, and obviously JR. They haven't really had the pieces to do it. You've got guys, Sunday Detch, outstanding defender, Lat Mayan, long as hell, Joe Luala-Chul, You've already got Doolittle, who we've already talked about as an outstanding defender. This squad could fundamentally change the way they play and be that defensive-minded unit. I think Wildcat fans have been crying out for it, and I think they went out and addressed it, and I think they addressed it really well. I'm super high on this team, but with the one caveat that they have to get the import point guard spot right.
Exactly. No, well said. What did you look like? You had something you wanted to
Yeah, so recently the team has sought intel on 4-year NBA shooting guard Kobe Simmons. Sources said, as well as Mason Jones, who's the reigning NBA G League Finals MVP.
Yeah.
Yuri Collins, a 6-foot point guard who spent the bulk of the 24-25 season with the Santa Cruz Warriors. All right? So it is out there.
Let's hope they get one of them soon, right?
And then quickly.
And to Matt's point, right, in previous years, you could go in with a guard maybe in the 7th or 8th game, have a look at, what you want to do and what would fit. But in the new age NBL, you want a training camp, you want your point guard especially to learn to play alongside some of these guys. And if the start of this season comes and you've got Elijah Pepper or Ben Henschel or whoever's starting at that position, that is a concern, right? So,
no doubt.
Yeah.
So Woods, I've got these guys. I've got my boys coming top 4. I think with the upside of being top 2 if they really do hit it at that final piece.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
fair enough.
Pretty pleased with the off season. Look, I guess quickly just the fantasy side. I think you're right. Doolittle's probably the stud you want to get there.
Yeah.
Look, in terms of a cheap sort of guy you might be able to get, maybe a Lat Main or maybe even a Cam Hoofner there. Maybe I'm a little bit higher on him than I should be, but you never know. He'll be cheap as chips. He might come and get some stuff going there. But yeah, look, really excited to see how they go. Look, we didn't really speak about the next Kuol. So he's a big body guy there. So he's someone that's going to come in and look. We know that Perth play these next stars, so he's someone that probably will get some minutes there. You've got him,
he's raw,
power forward. He is raw, yeah,
very raw.
We'll see how he goes.
What an athlete, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a paragraph on him really quickly. Long, wiry, mobile, and athletic. Forward with lots of upside to develop, is very thin and is just growing into his frame. A developmental player, but with intriguing tools. Right, so this is
this will be one of those teams that if you don't know who the Wildcats are and you see them at the airport, you're going to know they're a basketball team, right? They have got some just long guys on this team. I'd actually like to see them get a really tall point guard, get like a 6'4" to 6'6" point guard, and just play these massive lineups there, which would be fun. But yeah, hopefully we get some news on that soon, and we'll certainly keep everyone posted. So, all right, I know we're going to talk about Sydney, but sorry, we're out of time, guys. So that's all right. Okay, so
that's fine by me.
We're going to have a whole show with the Kings with you guys. So right, you're on the clock as well for this one. We're not going all night for the Kings. I know you two can talk about it for a while, but look, I'll go through it, Woods, if you like. So coached by the great Brian Gorgon. The incoming players, you've got Gok Maliol, Kendrick Davis, great signing there from Adelaide. Is it Luther One?
Luther One, yeah.
Luther One, yeah. Matthew Delvedova, I've heard of that guy. I've heard he's pretty good at basketball. And Tim Suarez returning, the former championship player there. So look, not a lot of turnover there compared to some of these teams we've seen where it's been quite a lot of players. Obviously there's some key positions that are being replaced in the whole backcourt essentially. But you've got some returning players, Kuol, who we spoke about, Jalen Galloway, who Matty and I saw up close this year, and obviously was so good in that FIBA Asia Cup. I'm really excited to see how he'll go. And Xavier Cooks, he's going to be pressed for a big year as well. So, look, I like the roster. Maybe let's address the perhaps bad news first. You can see it at the bottom. Woods, why don't you tell us about these recent injuries and the last one that came out today?
Well, Kelly Lupepe, ACL, out for the season. That happened at the Blitz, if I'm not mistaken, Matt.
Yeah, right? Correct. First game, yeah. And Spurgeon, who had such great, he had such a promising off-season in the NBL1. Expected some things from him this year. He's out as well. The glaring hole there is at the center position, and that needs to be addressed. And maybe I'll throw over to Matt now. Overall on the roster and some of the acquisitions, Robbie did say we did bring back a lot of that nucleus, but especially that backcourt. What's that going to do for Sydney this season? That's the positive. Obviously, bringing in a Kendrick Davis, second in MVP voting, had tremendous year with Adelaide. Obviously, there were all the issues that we heard about behind the scenes with Mike Wells, the coach of the 36ers. But when he on floor, absolute superstar. Again, a walking bucket, but a great distributor. Led the league in assists, and he's explosive. He's dynamic. He gets up and down the floor extremely well. by all accounts, fitted in very well so far with the group. Was training in the off season with Matty and with X over in the US. So he's developed that chemistry with those two guys already. So that's one. Then Matthew Dellavedova, the ostensibly the grand final or the championship series, as they're calling it these days, most valuable player. Of course, it should have been Will Hickey, we know, but he, officially he was spectacular last year. I felt, the year before I thought like he might be losing half the step, but boy, he showed that once he was over some niggling injuries, he's still the same Matt Dellavedova that he ever was, second in the league in assists again. Tremendous leader. For me, he's that Jason Smith type that Gorge always wants in his teams. A hard nut, culture setter, culture driver, tough as nails, unbelievable competitor. All the things that Jace was, the captain, that's Matt Dellavedova to a T. So he's that kind of player. He's not obviously different type of player, but in terms of his traits, not just the physical stuff, but all the leadership stuff, all the intangibles. He is Jason Smith reincarnated.
What's Dellavedova's relationship with Gorgon there, Matt? So we know they've obviously been associated with her for a long time. They're obviously pretty close, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and that's why it was really he only wanted to come to Sydney for that reason. As a lot of them do to be able to play for Brian. So. That's the positive. I think those two and the backcourt is going to be sensational without a doubt because the two of them make everyone around them better. And I think Davis is going to be a big upgrade on Jalen Adams. No disrespect to Jalen, but look, he was dealing with some stuff last year, which, I've said publicly his back was an issue all year, and it clearly was. There was some other stuff which I'm not going to go into behind the scenes that was impacting him, and so he wasn't as effective for the Kings in his second stint that he was in when he won the MVP the first time and the championship. So I think Davis is an upgrade on Jalen, and I hope Jalen does really well in Brisbane because I like him a lot, always have. But I think the Kings did extremely well from the backcourt perspective. Look, Tim Suarez. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. I just think, and especially now, I think this is where, and it comes back to we'll get on to Bowl Kuol in a minute, but, they're kind of hamstrung, the Kings. There's only two imports. Yes, they've got Xavier Cooks, who in effect plays an import spot role. Yes, you've got Matthew Dellavedova, but you've still only got two imports.
And Suarez is a real role-playing import.
He's a role player. He's not going to change life. And the thing that worries me about him more than anything is how he stands up to the guys like Will Magnay, to the guys like Montrezl Harrell, to the guys like even Tyrell Harrison, to a whole bunch of bigs that he doesn't stand up well at the point of attack. If you isolate him one-on-one against these bigs, he just can't deal with them. It's been shown, it's been proven. And when he won his championship with the Kings, everyone forgets who was playing alongside him.
Jordan Hunter. They had that two-headed monster
exactly.
there, right? And they could throw different things at different centers depending on the situation. Now he's been thrown into a role where he's the only big man on the roster, only true center. He does look like he's expanded his game a little bit, offensively. Yeah. But once again, you want to.
He's been good in the preseason, Woody. Yeah. I don't deny it, but I'm just not as – look, again, I'm just trying to be authentic here. And that's the thing. It's my team, clearly, but, you have to be authentic. And I've got some massive concerns, and primarily it's around Bowl Kuol as a marquee. I just think, we talked about it at the top. It just hasn't worked. From all accounts, there's some issue there physically with him again. Which is a massive concern. And now you lose Lau Pepe, you lose Spurgeon. Where do you go?
It would be a shock to see Kuol go to a six-man role and Galloway start, right?
100%. Look, in all honesty, Galloway, I would have ahead of him.
Yeah.
And you know what? Makuch Malawatch, I think is, and that's...
He deserves it. Man. He's earned it. Right?
And Brian loves him. Brian is so impressed with him. But there's that wing spot, and look, the Kings have got some decisions to make now. The Lau Pepe thing is, Do they want it? Look, they'll be competitive. They'll be fun to watch. I think for the most part, a lot more fun. Last year's team it wasn't fun. It really wasn't. Same as the year before. You look at the stats. They just the pace wasn't there. They didn't move the ball. And part of that was that Adams just couldn't explode the way he did the first time he was here, and you could see it physically. He was limited. Yeah, he still put up good numbers. Don't get me wrong. But you could see it, and so they should be a lot more. They'll want to get into that run and gun. I mean, Galloway I think, is an NBA player in the making. I just think he is an enormous talent, and it wouldn't surprise me if he got a two-way at some stage.
Yeah, might not see the season out.
No, that's the thing, right?
He got lost a little bit. There's so many wings
and got
wings
hurt.
Rotation, got hurt, right?
Yeah,
and then
that was the thing.
Just lack of opportunity and timing. But we've seen with the national team recently and NBL1, right? He deserves his chance now, right? Yeah.
Hey, Wood, you've been sending me a few messages today about potential big men replacements for this team. So why don't you let the listeners know who you're thinking about? Yeah. I know there's one that we might all agree on, right?
Give me a name. I mean, look, okay, Suarez is all we've got, at the moment, and we got 2 injuries to Lepepe and Spurgeon. Give me some names.
How about someone that was with the Canberra Gunners, right?
Glenn Morrison is the one that stands out. Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it. Yep. Look. He's more of an old school traditional big, which you don't see too much of these days.
Yeah.
Although he can hit the outside shot. Not a great 3-point shooter, but can hit that mid range. Loves that shot from the elbow. He's big on that. But man, his footwork in the low block is unbelievable. And
he's strong as an ox, isn't he?
He's as strong as hell. He can get up. He's a better athlete than you think. He does struggle a little bit in transition, and which. Canberra played that, that they were sort of 8th or 9th in pace, I think, in NBL1 East this year. But they did show the ability to run and gun as they did, obviously, in the grand final against Illawarra. But, look, I'm huge on him.
Great guy as well, isn't he? I'd love to see him get that. I think that suggestion's better than your other one. Woods, what was your other one you were talking up today?
I just asked you where he was, Matt Hodgson. I mean, he's big, right? He played in NBL1.
He's big, but he played in NBL1. 34, but not far off there.
Sorry, Matt.
Look, he's still 7 foot every day of the week.
I just asked where is he?
True. Anyone else apart from those two? Because they're going to be obviously trying to work the phones.
You guys know.
Well, I mean, I threw out Dan Gack from the Hills Hornets this year. Probably not quite as big as what you maybe need in that position there, but I don't know. I don't know who else is available. You're talking 2 weeks before the season.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
And this is why, the whole thing with Kuol as a marquee, this is where it kills you, because what they desperately need is an impact big as an import. That's what they desperately need now, especially with Lepepe going down, Spurgeon already going down.
Yeah.
They need someone to come in and be, because, look, again, Tim Suarez is a good complementary piece to a championship team, but he had Jordan Hunter alongside him the last time. There's nobody. I mean, okay, you make the argument, well, Cooks, but Cooks is more of a 3-4 than he is a 5. Let's be honest. He's not. You throw X in at the 5 spot. In a pinch if you go small ball.
Yeah.
But if you're going to win, look, in this team, the expectation is always to win championships.
Absolutely.
They're not a championship level team. They just aren't. And
on that, let's give some predictions, right? So maybe I'll start off with that. So last year, I should have mentioned this earlier, they finished, look, it was a disappointing 5th place finish with that roster they had. They had a 16-13 record.
Yep.
I think for me, I could see them winning, around that mark, maybe a game or two better, depending on if they can get this injury situation sorted with the big men. So, look, I expect they might just fit into that 4th spot there, and my top 4 would be the Wildcats, Adelaide, Illawarra, and Sydney there. But be interested to see what you guys think there. Do you think they're a top 4 chance, or are you a little bit concerned about that? Maybe Woods, what are your thoughts on that?
No. I mean, a month ago maybe I would have said they were, right? But then looking at preseason, these injuries, Kuol, there's so many question marks hanging over this team, and the league is strong, man. Like I talked about Tasmania being a lot stronger than I thought. All these teams are going to level up.
You can see that backcourt on the depth chart in front of you.
I can, but I'm still I've got concerns, and we didn't see Davis play with Delhi in that preseason. We'll see that in the Giannis Giannopoulos tournament or whatever coming up pretty soon. But
yeah. All right, so you're thinking outside of the top 4, and you're thinking the same, Matt?
Yeah. Just to point something out too about last year, they finished 16-13, right? the two grand final teams were Melbourne and Illawarra. Sydney were a combined 1-7 against that grand final team. You want to throw in Perth? That gets even worse. Then it becomes 2-9. So you can argue that the top three teams last year, or not argue, they were clearly, Melbourne, Illawarra, and Sydney were 2-9.
It's a pretty damning stat, isn't it? Yeah.
That's
Very
damning.
stat.
So they beat up
And
on the
I
bottom
don't-
teams to get that 16 wins.
Exactly. So this is, people kind of forget that. The other thing I didn't mention, I look, and God bless him, and look, I love him to death, and he's been an incredible servant. But Sean Bruce, man, that's a concern for me as well, because he is not what he was. And look, he's in the second year of his final. I think it'll be his final contract. I think this will be his last season before he retires.
Yeah.
But there's no secret why Brian needed or thought he needed 2 point guards, because he had no backup last year. It was Isaiah Liafa and it was Sean Bruce, and they just were unable to do it. And Sean, because look, let's face it, Father Time is undefeated. I see a guy that's lost a step and a half.
Yeah.
And I look, what is a concern for me is that there were guys, you talk about guys that are available. Who was available, and I know would have been unbelievable, and admittedly, there are reasons for this, but who did we see in NBL1 East and this year led the league in scoring for a certain team that plays out of Alexandria?
Yeah.
And played in the NBA Summer League.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, look, he had his first stint with the Kings. We're talking about Bawali Bars.
I know exactly you're talking about.
He had his first stint with the Kings.
Yeah.
It did not end well. There was a lot of that. That was with Chase Buford, that team. When he left, it was mutual decision, except it wasn't. But I know exactly what happened. I won't go into it, but suffice it to say that the Kings hierarchy, and I'm talking about Paul Smith, Chris Pongrass in particular, don't want him back at the club. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, he went to Switzerland. He went to Europe. He's had the right people now in his ear, and he's matured. And I would have loved to have seen him get an opportunity, And then the other one, Tamiri Wigness, who had a great, that's just two examples. There are other guys. I mean, my guy at Sutherland, Lachlan Hutchison, and again, a guy that's played with the Kings as a development player and has been on their training squad.
I've got to say, Wally Bales, easily the most confident, in his own ability player that I've ever commentated. He was unbelievable, and that's maybe one of the things there. But I think you're right, man. And Woody, I'm sure you'd agree as well. If you wanted to see who you get more from in this team,
I hate saying,
Sean Bruce or
look, I love Sean Bruce, man, and Sean Bruce has been great for the Sydney Kings. He's a multiple championship winner. He's been a great leader. He's a terrific person, and this is not. I'm not going to be personal in any way, but I just think signing him for those 2 years was a mistake. I would have signed him for a year, see how he went last year, and then, okay, maybe you sign him for another year. But a 2-year deal, which means, you're not going to cut him, and they had opportunities to bring other guys in that I think would have been, at this stage of his career, just better options and more productive.
This is what happens when teams win, right, though. They lock up players, don't they, maybe for a little bit longer than what they should. And you see it across all sports.
Look, I'm sure I'll get in trouble with the Kings for saying what I've said.
No, it's saying how it is.
You got to be honest about it. So in terms of where they finish, look, at the moment, they'll be struggling to make the play-in. I think I can name 5 teams straight away that immediately are better than them. And there's probably a couple more that you look at, and it's what you said, Robbie. I think one of the big things is, look, that the Dellavedova Davis backcourt has the potential to be one of the greatest backcourts in franchise history, which is saying a lot because we've had some great ones, obviously. But it's when you look at that front line and you look at the overall depth, the big man depth just isn't there. Rebounding's been a problem for them the last couple of years. It's and they're hamstrung by the marquees and the way it's set up, and they can't get a third import unless they convert the marquee to a regular salary cap spot, which means that it just blows your salary cap to kingdom come, and then you're paying tax. On top of that, you're having to pay for an import spot, which getting an import impact 3-4, let's say, would not be cheap at all. Do the Denhams want to spend that money? I'm talking about Robin Denham, Matt Denham, that run the Kings. Do they want to spend that kind of money? That's what I'm saying. That there are some serious discussions that need to be had. The Lau Pepe thing is the thing that really just puts a down on everything for me. I just think he was going to be huge for us this season, and it's just it's such a shame. I wasn't as high on them as other people were anyway with Kelly, but I think they would have been a hell of a lot more competitive with him, unless they're going to have to make some changes and bite the bullet.
Well said, Matt. Look, a really good deep dive into both the teams. Fellas, I really appreciate that. Yeah, you got a
just one final thought, right? The Andrew Bogut effect, coming into the coaching staff, what do you guys see? What kind of coaching?
Well, he doesn't have any big men to work with, unfortunately. So that's probably where it would have been at his best. But look, he's still going to contribute. I mean, the guy knows basketball as well as any big man in the game does. So look, if they can find a guy, maybe he'll be the one to work with there. But no, I quite like that. I think him and Gorge have got a lot of respect for each other. So I see that working well. But just in closing, Glenn Morrison, if you're listening, keep your phone on. You never know, that phone might ring there. And yes, even your dog agrees with that one. So, that's obviously a Morrison fan. So, all right, well, appreciate that. Well, look, I know we're going a little bit long, fellas, but we will continue. Just finish off with a quick true false that we like to finish the show off with each week. So we'll go through these pretty quickly. But the first one, the Brisbane Bullets will have the biggest win increase from last season in the NBL, where they went 12-17. True and false? Woods first.
False. I don't think they're even going to win 12 games this season. Looking at them in preseason, they got a good import.
Oh, you liked them 3 weeks ago. We did the
I did, man. But after preseason, man, I'm really concerned. Right?
True or false, Matty? Will they have
absolutely false? Yeah, and no disrespect to them, but some of the hype around it's the best import trio in the league. Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, the strong import trio. I'll give him that. Javon Freeman, Liberty gets buckets.
I'm not as high on Jalen as I once was. Maybe he turns it around. Freeman Liberty looks like he's going to be a gun. Yeah. We don't know with Casey. Was it a one-season hit wonder? And look, we know the guy's a star. We know that, but he's a year older. It'll be interesting to see how he performs in kind of the second year of his second stint.
Well, in fairness, I did write this question before the Blitz. So, look, they could go up a couple of wins. I'm thinking maybe more like a Tasmania or an Adelaide or Cairns. One of those sort of teams might have the biggest increase. And you're probably
I agree.
Maybe 4
Cairns,
wins.
Tasmania.
Like that.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah,
true. All right, well, I think we know maybe the answer for this one, but the NBL champions this season will either be the Sydney Kings or the Adelaide 36ers. Matt McQuade, true or false?
False.
False.
And much as I think Adelaide's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
and
sort of Adelaide against the field.
So much fun to watch.
Yeah.
But there's still question marks over them defensively. So, they're going to win their games like 125, 116. That's how it's going to be for them.
Yeah.
But whether that gets you a championship, that's problematic.
I'll agree and say false as well. All right, the next one. Next star for the New Zealand Breakers, Karim Lopez will be a legit NBA player next season. Woods.
I mean, you remember Fran Fraschilla said when Bruno Caboclo got drafted, he's 2 years away from being 2 years away, right? The good thing about this Next Stars program is those youngsters like Karim Lopez and Bruno Caboclo would have benefited from the Next Stars program 12 years ago, is to come here and have that 2 years before going to the NBA. So I think Karim Lopez will get drafted, lottery pick next year, but he still has 2 years till he's going to contribute meaningful minutes in the NBA, right? So that's my answer, false. But
false. Yes. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, it's kind of a false true thing, isn't it? Like, true, he's going to be an NBA player. Like, there's no two ways about that. And he'll be... the Mexican, the highest drafted Mexican in history by far. I think I saw him at number 7 on one of the draft picks, one of the draft boards, and he's no lower than 10th. So
imagine if one of the LA teams can get him, right? He'll be an absolute sensation there. With
unbelievable. 100%. So it's probably false in an immediate sense, but true as in down the track. He's got all the tools.
Yeah, it probably does depend on the team as well, doesn't it? Depending on what sort of minutes you get. So, all right, well, the final one, it's an NBA one. So the LA Clippers will make the Western Conference Finals this season and be a chance to beat their highest ever regular season total of 57 wins. True or false? Matt?
False.
False. Do you think I'll go close to that?
The depth is better than they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
They brought in, a lot of guys who on paper, you look at it and think, holy cow. I mean, it's like an NBA All-Star team. When you got Beal and you got Chris Paul, who was 40, by the way. James Harden, if he shows, and obviously Kawhi. I mean, that's like an NBA 2K team, that they put together. And I like John Collins as well. I think, that the additions have been smart on paper, but whether it all comes together, and they are so old. And, look, yes, the depth, I guess, is the argument that they can mitigate that a little bit, kind of like what Boston did with Al Horford. When the Celtics won their last championship, it was kind of, one day on, one day off, one day on, one day off, not too many back-to-backs, and they'll probably work that around. But fundamentally, it's the Clippers, man. It's, they've got the state-of-art arena there is in the Intuit Dome, and they've got on paper a great team, but on paper it also is a very old team. So,
true.
Yeah, I think they'll be in the 45 to 55 range, but I don't think they win 60 games like some people have done.
What do you think, Wes?
False. I mean, they won 50 games last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
I mean, you had a bunch of aging superstars, ones with questionable health, right? You're gonna trust Bradley Beal and Kawhi to stay healthy. This screams of a little bit of that Grant Hill, Paul Pierce coming to play for the Clippers for one season at the very end. It kind of smells a bit like that, right?
Yeah,
I agree.
For me, look, I'll probably say false. I do think they could give that 57 wins a shot. Maybe 53 to 55.
I said 55, maybe they're ceiling, so that's close enough.
It's true, and I can see, obviously with that depth they've got, if you try and rest these guys or you do get some injuries, you've got some pretty good guys. You've got your Batums and your Brook Lopez's and your John Collins and all these guys that can come on and still really contribute. So I'm looking forward to seeing. They're going to be a team I'm quite interested to see how they go next year. But all right, that was fun, fellas. Well, look, I'm sure we can talk all day there. It's always great to have you on, Matt. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks,
as always.
Guys.
Got to get you back on, maybe before, maybe we'll get you on, in 6 months' time rather than 12 months' time. It's always so much fun to chat. Maybe you guys can give some thoughts on how the Kings are going halfway through the year or something. But we'll just get to a quick outro. So as I mentioned at the start of the show, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be followed on X at Throwback Hoops. Look for Woody to put some of these jerseys up, and of course this lovely Dave Cowens card. Instagram throwback.hoops and email address throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Patreon, Woods, you want to go through that?
Yeah, Patreon. Thanks for everyone's support, all our fans that go and contribute. We don't expect you to, but thanks for those of you that do. Right? Yeah.
Well said. And Matt, where can people sort of, listen to you, follow you, all those sort of things? Where's the best way they can sort of hear the great?
Well, before I get into that, just quickly, and it might be a little bit self-serving, but I just want to thank you guys for your incredibly kind words the other day about Mookie and myself and our call of the grand final. It meant a lot. I also want to thank you guys for doing this show. It's absolutely outstanding, the two of you. I mean, your love of the game, the passion that you both show for it, your knowledge of the game as well, the stuff you do with the cards, the old school stuff, which I remember so fondly, the jerseys, of which I don't have any, but anyway, that's by the by. But it's fantastic, and the fact that you cover not just the NBA and I love it, man. And I know it's one of those things that you kind of say, well, of course you do because you're friends with them. But it's legitimately a great show. It really is. It's a lot of fun to listen to and watch, and got you on the car if I can't watch you on YouTube. So thank you for doing what you do, and please keep doing it. I just you wanted to throw that out there because how
nice is that, Woods? I reckon we'll have to get him back on again.
Yeah, I'm sucking up to get back on again.
So tell us about the round table, man. When's the round table kicking off, right? Yeah.
Funny you should ask. Yeah. So Julian and I were just chatting about that today. So we will be back on your airwaves, podcast, whatever, on Tuesday. So next Tuesday. So we're going to record on the Monday for a Tuesday drop. So we're going to have a huge season preview edition. We'll have one or two guests on, I'm sure, and who are a lot smarter than me to go through things. And one of the most fascinating NBL seasons because of what we've talked about, and that is everybody, I think, has gotten better. Well, most teams, and most teams have loaded up as well. So even if they've lost people, they've like Perth, for example, is a classic example. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that. So that'll be wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. I'm MATTMC33 on X. Thank you. I keep saying Twitter. And on Instagram, it's just... With me, it's just basketball stuff, and it's been NBL1 stuff, but it'll be a lot more NBL stuff coming up. So, if you want to yell at me for my take or whatever, yeah, please do. And plenty do. Don't worry.
Much appreciated, Matt, as always. Woods, any final thoughts?
Well, from Matt McQuade to his co-commentator next week on the show, right?
Oh, he's coming on.
Ricky on next week.
Which teams is he doing?
Melbourne and SEM. He's been doing it for the last few
Nice.
seasons for us.
Of course he has, yeah.
so-
Awesome. They do a great job, Mr. Shirali. And yeah, didn't he do a fantastic job in that grand final?
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, he's actually, he's been with me now for 4 years. Actually, it's longer than 4 years. Before we were doing Waratah, and then we were doing radio before that. So he and I go back forever. But I think this year, in particular, his commentary went to another level. I was so impressed, and I was so proud of him and so pleased that Basketball New South Wales picked him to commentate the grand final, the NBL1 Nationals grand final with me. And it was a joy, absolute joy.
Well deserved, and an absolute class human being as well. So we can't wait to have him on.
One of the great ones.
And it's another class human being that we had this week. Thanks so much again, Matt. Really appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll be chatting during the season. Look, I hope the outlook for your Sydney Kings is better than maybe what you're both thinking. But either way, can't wait for this season to start. And it's a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops crew. We'll see you all soon.
See you next week.